This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Mosaic, a daily news program from Link TV, presents a selection of news reports from independent and state-controlled broadcasters from throughout the Middle East.
A
debate has ensued over the definition of the word terrorism. The debate took place between a group of researchers, journalists, and Muslim organizations on the one side and the U.S. authorities on the other. The issue returned to the spotlight after a U.S. citizen crashed his private jet into the IRS office building in Austin, Texas last Thursday. Fadi Mansour reports.
Hours after the Austin suicide attack, U.S. authorities quickly ruled out terrorism as a motive. The attacker, Joseph Stack, crashed his private jet into the IRS office building in Austin after burning his home and publishing a statement on a website expressing his rage against the government. The decision to rule out terrorism as a motive has stirred wide-scale controversy in the U.S. Several research centers, journalists, and Muslim organizations criticize the government over what they refer to as double standards.
Whenever a Muslim carries out an act of terror and it's linked to Islam, then the attack is labeled as terrorism, and we don't oppose that label. However, when another individual carries out an act of terror that meets the specific definition of terrorism, which is the use of violence and threats against society, such an act is not classified as terrorism.
Ibrahim Hooper, National Communications Director for the Council on American Islamic Relations, said that the U.S. Department of Homeland Security quickly ruled out terrorism as a motive in the Austin attack. In contrast, as soon as the Islamic identity of Army Major Nidal Hassan was revealed in the attack on the Fort Hood military base last November, terrorism was said to be the motive. Under U.S. law, what is the definition of terrorism? According to the United States Penal Code, terrorism is the calculated use of unlawful violence or threat to instill fear intended to coerce or intimidate governments or societies in the pursuit of goals that are generally political or social. Therefore, the definition of terrorism is based on the nature and motive of the action as opposed to the ethnic or religious background of the perpetrator. The perpetrator in the Austin attack, which was carried out in a similar fashion to the September 11th attacks, called on Americans to rise against their government. Several groups were created on Facebook, hailing his action and describing it as heroic. It seems that excerpts of his statement were attributed to right-wing groups, notably the Tea Party, which is accusing President Barack Obama of raising taxes. In a statement issued to Al Jazeera, the Department of Homeland Security said that the attack was an isolated incident, vowing to step up measures against extreme and violent ideologies in the U.S. Has terrorism become an exclusive term associated with a religious identity in the U.S.? Are individuals or groups outside the official definition of terrorism posing a threat to national security? Some believe the answer to these two questions is yes, basing their answers on the Austin suicide bombing. Fadi Mansour, Al Jazeera, Washington.
The Australian government has released its counter-terrorism white paper. It claimed earlier this week that Australia is under permanent threat of terrorist attacks. Civil rights lawyers and activists have slammed the report, claiming that it employs scaremongering tactics to beef up security firms.
On Tuesday, Australian Prime Minister Kevin Rudd released the counter-terrorism white paper, warning that Australia is under a real and enduring threat and could come under attack at any time.
Terrorism continues to pose a serious threat, a serious challenge to Australia's security interests. That threat is not diminishing.
I think the White Paper's assertion that there's a real risk of a terrorism incident happening in Australia is a lot of rubbish. Because if you look at the figures and the probabilities, the risk of a terrorist attack happening in Australia is insignificant.
Civil rights activists say the government's white paper is big on assertions and weak in documentation and evidence, saying it opens the door for discrimination and racial profiling, and that its implementation may lead to the erosion of civil liberties in the name of national security.
My biggest concern is that it's particularly targeting. It's talking about 10 countries of people who are going to be targeted, and that is going to increase the discriminatory nature of laws. These laws are already very discriminatory. They specifically target resistance groups from South Lebanon, from Palestine, from Tamil areas of Sri Lanka, and at the same time they don't mention and actually give a carte blanche to Israeli terrorist organizations operating in Palestine.
Muslim groups and political activists have also expressed concern over the report, as it focuses on what it describes as the homegrown threat. They fear they may be targeted under the proposed changes outlined in the white paper.
The laws are really a clear message to people that to be afraid to stand up, and that particularly anyone who's in solidarity with resistance to Australia's occupations in the Middle East, it's targeting that.
The report will introduce a number of measures, including biometric checks of visa applicants and visitors to Australia from what it describes as 10 suspect countries. The countries have not yet been defined, yet security experts believe that Indonesia, Somalia and Yemen will be included. The remaining 7 countries are believed to be from the Middle East and Southeast Asia. The government has pledged $69 million of taxpayers' money towards the proposed biometric checks, as well as a new counter-terrorism centre and enhanced technologies for security agencies. Some fear that the government is using scaremongering tactics to boost its security apparatus and justify what some experts have described as the erosion of civil liberties. Other experts have pointed the finger at a security lobby which stands to profit from the sale of new technologies to the government. Rihab Sharida for Press TV, Sydney.
The U.S. and Israel have opened talks on Iran's nuclear program following Russia's rejection of tougher sanctions against Tehran. The meeting is being held between U.S. Deputy Secretary of State James Steinberg and his Israeli counterpart Danny Ayalon. This comes a week after the Israeli Prime Minister's visit to Moscow failed to rally Russian support for tougher UN sanctions against the Islamic Republic. Tel Aviv claims Tehran's nuclear program is a cover for producing atomic weapons. Iran, who is a signatory to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, the NPT, says its nuclear industry is for the production of electricity and life-saving medical isotopes used in cancer treatment. This is while Israel has more than 200 nuclear warheads and refuses to sign the NPT. Israeli forces have arrested 1 Palestinian following clashes in the West Bank city of Al Khalil, also known as Hebron. The clashes erupted as Palestinians gathered at the Cave of the Patriarchs to protest Israel's plan to add the holy site to its heritage list. They were also marking the 60th anniversary of an Israeli-American settlers' massacre of 29 Muslims at the site. Israel's move to add 2 holy sites to its heritage list has drawn criticism from the UN. The world body says the holy site is of historic and religious significance, not only to Judaism, but also to Islam and Christianity. The U.S. has called the move provocative and unhelpful to peace talks. Press TV's Sari Al-Khalili gives us the latest updates on the clashes in Al-Khalil, also known as Hebron.
We have reports saying that at least 10 Palestinians were injured by the tear gas bombs that were shot by the Israeli forces who responded to those Palestinian youth who were throwing empty bottles and stones towards the Israeli jeeps who surrounded the city today in order to ban the protests that were scheduled to take place to commemorate the 16th anniversary of the Abraham Holy Shrines massacre, which killed 29 Palestinians back in 1994 when an Israeli terrorist opened fire at the worshippers. Back then, many Palestinian officials participated in these protests. Mustafa al-Barghouthi, a Palestinian member of the parliament, was among the protesters. Also, Mohammed Barak, now the confrontations are taking place, and many of those protesters are being gassed and targeted directly by the Israeli forces.
Following a flurry of threats by Palestinian leaders to launch a third intifada, the Prime Minister's office today offered a sharp response. At the center of the controversy is the government's latest last-minute decision to include the Cave of the Patriarchs and Rachel's tomb in the list of national heritage sites. We get more in this report.
A storm of controversy continues following the cabinet's decision this past Sunday to include the Cave of Patriarchs in Hebron and Rachel's tomb in Bethlehem on a list of national heritage sites. Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas strongly condemned Israel's actions and warned that the government's decision may lead to a religious war. Addressing EU parliamentarians in Brussels, Abbas said that both sides have, quote, reached a very critical stage, which necessitates an intensive, coordinated international effort. He called the Israeli move a very dangerous provocation. Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh went even further, urging Palestinians to launch a new intifada deep within Israel. Several other terror groups echoed his calls, including Islamic Jihad, as well as the Al-Quds brigades, which warned Israel that the rules of the game are expected to change, and said that if Israelis continue to damage our mosques and holy places, we will respond within the Zionist territory. The Israeli government, meanwhile, has refused to backtrack on its decision and continues to stand by its plans to renovate the holy sites. Nir Chafetz, the Prime Minister's media advisor, called the threats of renewed violence and terror a false and hypocritical campaign. Chafetz defended the plans, telling reporters that, quote, the State of Israel is committed to freedom of religion for worshippers of all faiths. The tombs are the burial sites of Israel's forefathers, dating back more than 3,500 years. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and the nation's foremothers, Sarah, Rebecca, Leah, and Rachel, are all definitely worthy of preservation and renovation. Chafetz noted that both the entrance plaza and path leading to the Islamic prayer room in the Tomb of the Patriarchs is currently being refurbished. Israel will similarly maintain the sites used by Jews, he said. This is Sarah Levine for IBA News.
Son of Hamas founder Sheikh Hassan Youssef once served as an extremely valuable and effective intelligence agent for Israel's Shin Bet security service. This according to an exclusive report in the Haaretz newspaper. More in this report.
Haaretz today reported that Musab Hassan Youssef joined the Shin Bet security service in 1996. He is credited with saving countless lives by providing pinpoint intelligence that prevented dozens of suicide bombings and assassinations of political leaders in Israel. Youssef is the son of Sheikh Hassan Youssef, an influential West Bank figure who is one of the key founders of the militant Hamas terror organization. News of Youssef's son's employment as a Shin Bet agent will be another blow to the terror organization on the heels of the January assassination of top Hamas commander Mahmoud al-Mabhouh. Haaretz reported the information provided by Youssef's son Musab was so valued that he was nicknamed the Green Prince. One of his Shin Bet colleagues told the paper that Youssef deserves Israel's Security Prize for his contribution in preventing terrorism. According to Haaretz, Musab Youssef supplied near-daily key intelligence that exposed a number of terror cells from his father's Hamas organization and led to the arrests of many Palestinian terrorists on Israel's most wanted list, including Fatah Tanzim leader Marwan Barghouti. The son of the Hamas founder fled the West Bank in 2007 after he created a firestorm of criticism by converting to Christianity from Islam. He said he wished he was still in Gaza so that he could join special forces to liberate abducted IDF soldier Gilad Shalit in order to eliminate the need to release Palestinian prisoners he helped put behind bars. He told the paper in a telephone interview that we wasted so many years with investigations and arrests to capture the very terrorists that they now want to release in return for Shalit. Youssef today lives in California and is currently publishing a memoir about his ordeal entitled Son of Hamas. The Shin Bet has made no comment. This is Aaron Viner for IBA News.
And a short time ago, Aaron Viner spoke to Haaretz reporter Avi Issacharoff, who broke the story on Musab Hassan Youssef. and ask him what motivated the Hamas founder's son to work for the Israeli security services.
When he was arrested for the first time in 1996, he was offered by the Shin Bet to work for them. What he told me is that actually he didn't plan to work for the Shin Bet, but to work as a double agent, meaning that to collect information from the Shin Bet and to pass it on to Hamas. But then he witnessed, while he stayed in prison, he witnessed some very bad torturing that Hamas did to some people, Palestinian people, inside the jail. And that motivated him not to help Hamas anymore. Then when he got out of prison, the first few meetings with the Shin Bet officers really convinced him or persuaded him to work with the Shin Bet, because he was very much impressed with not only their knowledge, but with their willing to be nice to him and to actually not to kill people, but to save the life of people.
Does Musab Hassan Youssef not fear retaliation from Hamas with the publishing of his memoirs and his interviews with you?
I think that Musab Youssef does understand that he's under threat right now, and he is in a way afraid, but he's completely convinced that he's got to go on in this journey that he took on himself and to tell the world about the truth. I mean, the man is has a lot to say to the world about Islam, about Hamas, and he's now in a kind of his own crusade.
The son of Hamas founder Hassan Youssef was a spy for Israel's internal security agency. He provided the agency information that contributed to numerous arrests and the prevention of attacks. This, according to Israeli newspaper Haaretz, about Musab Hassan Youssef, who had converted from Islam to Christianity.
The star of the story is Musab Hassan Youssef, and the reason for the commotion around his story is that he is the son of Hassan Youssef, a Hamas leader in the West Bank. For more than 8 years, Hassan Youssef has been imprisoned in an Israeli jail. He cried when he found out that his son had abandoned his religion. However, Israel's Haaretz newspaper claimed that Musab was, for a decade, the #1 informant for the Shin Bet security service in the West Bank. The second interview by Musab himself was aired by the American Fox News Channel 3 years ago, in which he described his father crying after he learned of his decision to convert to Christianity.
He is not too far from Christianity. He is very close to it, and I told him that. I told him, you're very far from Islam and very close to Christianity. And those were my last words to him, and then he cried.
Despite these ideas, according to Dr. Mahmoud al-Ramahi, an aide to Hassan Youssef, the young man has reassessed returning to Islam. But Haaretz wanted to eliminate any chance of Musab returning to Islam. According to a report obtained by Al Arabiya, even Hassan Youssef, the father of Musab, claims that what has been published about his son's activities against Hamas and its members and other Palestinians is a bald-faced lie. He said in his report that Musab was under his supervision and that of the movement. The complete story will be published by Haaretz on Friday, issued from a memoir titled Son of Hamas, after Musab decided to reveal the biggest secret that he has kept to himself since 1996, when he was first imprisoned. Once again, according to Israeli newspaper Haaretz, he became an informant for Israel when he was released from prison in 1997.
Nearly 140,000 Iraqis, mostly intellectuals, are currently living in Sweden, as confirmed by official figures. Iraqi expatriates left Iraq over different periods of time, starting with the Iran-Iraq War. Observers believe that Iraqis living in Sweden have a clear political vision which may help transform Iraq into a democratic state.
Who will win the vote of Iraqis living abroad, and who will represent them in the new parliament? Iraqis living outside Iraq are different than those living inside the country, as most expatriates are pressing for political change. Many Iraqis were forced to leave the country in light of the deteriorating security situation following the fall of Baghdad. Over the past 4 decades, a large number of Iraqis have forcibly left Iraq and relocated in various countries across the world.
Many Iraqis who are currently living in Iraq had lived at one point in their lives in other countries, where they experienced the democratic process firsthand. Consequently, they could grasp what they learned in these countries and take it back to Iraq, where it could be used to develop a new democratic system.
This notion of democracy seems to be well regarded by rival political parties at the home front. Many of Iraq's political blocs have opened liaison offices in foreign countries in an attempt to reach out to Iraqi voters. Iraqis living abroad may find these offices very helpful, as many of them issue and process passports and residential applications, as well as other documents. In Stockholm, for example, the strong competition among various Iraqi political blocs has cast its shadow inside the Iraqi embassy. The Iraqi embassy in Stockholm is seeking to ease the process of communication with its nationals and has recently reduced the backlog of passport applications.
The embassy has been transformed into a public office. It represents the various segments of the Iraqi society, as well as the political blocs.
The good relations between the various political groups, despite their ideological differences, have been very effective. Each party has its own ideology. However, the various groups were able to establish a good brotherly relation, which has made our job easier.
Iraqi voters in diaspora will likely vote for a candidate who holds a secular or liberal view. Based on our interviews with the expatriates, most Iraqi voters living abroad will likely vote in favor of a liberal candidate or any other candidate who promises to pave the way for them to return home, ending years of exile. Ahmed Al-Saleh, Al Arabiya, Stockholm.
أكد القيادي في المجلس الأعلى وعضو الائتلاف الوطني العراقي هادي العامري أهمية المشاركة في الانتخابات.
Hadi al-Amari, a senior leader of the Supreme Council and a member of the Iraqi National Alliance, stressed the importance of participating in the upcoming elections in order to guarantee a fair representation of all Iraqi sects. Al-Amari issued his remarks during a meeting with leaders and sheikhs of the Diyala province. He said that the participation in the elections is an important factor in the country's political equation. He added that the purpose of the elections is not only to get the candidates in the parliamentary chamber.
If we were to permanently close the old chapter, if we were to change this unfair political equation, and if we seriously want to produce a new equation, then we must participate in the elections. Participation in the elections is not meant to help certain candidates get to the parliamentary chamber, but rather to help us create a new political factor that includes the various sects of the Iraqi people. This is the people's choice.
Member of the Iraqi National Alliance, Layal Al-Khafaji, stressed the importance of female participation in the upcoming elections. Al-Khafaji issued her remarks during a meeting with a group of women in the area of Kiryat in Baghdad. She read an excerpt from the political program of the Iraqi National Alliance. Al-Khafaji said that serving the public is a top priority for her alliance. Meanwhile, the residents in the area of Kiryat expressed their high hopes in regards to the performance of the Iraqi National Alliance in the upcoming elections. Many believe that the alliance program will help improve the quality of life in Iraq's impoverished areas.
The Iraqi National Alliance is lobbying under List 316. Our slogan is education, which is our top priority. Our political program is valid and can be used by the upcoming government. We're seeking to identify the voters' problems and concerns so we can address them accordingly. Once we identify these problems, we can come up with the proper solution to remedy the issues. If declared winner, the Iraqi National Alliance will lead the upcoming government and in turn will address these issues and work on the solutions, both at the parliamentary and public service levels.
على
More than a year has passed since the war on Gaza ended, but Palestinians living there are still suffering due to the consequences of that war. The war pushed many Palestinians to become very innovative in their search for new ways to make a living. Our reporter Saad Sowarki reports on one of these ways.
It is the most difficult test in the lives of the Palestinians in Gaza, who tragically lost everything. This man used to own a plant nursery, a destination for many trips from the surrounding schools. But it was destroyed during the last war on Gaza. He also lost his son, who used to help him in the nursery. But as usual, Gazans never stop thinking of new ways to make a living in order to stand on their feet once again.
I used to have a very beautiful plant nursery. A lot of people used to come and see it. Even students from the school's Department of Agriculture used to come and learn about plants in my nursery. My son used to work with me every single day. We started with nothing and established ourselves. We used to harvest 50,000 seedlings, but they were destroyed during the latest war. They attacked us with F-16s, phosphorus bombs, and bulldozers.
The idea is very unique, especially considering that it is difficult to find a job in Gaza. What is more difficult, however, is to get over one's sadness following the loss of a son. Using the few resources he has, Abu Haytham is using his home's rooftop to harvest seedlings. Today, his wife is the one who helps him.
My son was martyred during the holiday. I felt that I was all alone. I tried to get over my sadness and find an alternative source of income. I decided to harvest seedlings on the rooftop and sell them.
Any woman can do what I do. She only needs some help. We worked until midnight to harvest all of these seedlings.
This embodies the difference between the periods before and after the war. Abu Haytham wants people to emulate his experience on their rooftops throughout Gaza, which already suffers from being very densely populated and from a lack of agricultural land.
With very few resources, anyone who feels that they have nothing to do can come up with something. I use a 70 square meter area to cultivate 50 or 60,000 seedlings. This is very doable. Anyone can do it. One only needs to have a little bit of knowledge. If anyone comes to me, I will be happy to help them. Anyone can do what I'm doing.
After the war, people in Gaza have been forced to find alternative ways to make a living. These legitimate ideas render the notion of surrender very unlikely. People in Gaza become farmers by necessity. This idea might be particularly helpful to poor families who lost their only source of income. Syed Swerki, Russia Today, Gaza.
The views expressed on Mosaic are those of the participating broadcasters, not Link TV or its sponsors. The production of Mosaic is made possible with the support of viewers like you. Thank you.
This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only U.S. network dedicated to global and national news, uncompromising documentaries, and diverse cultural programs, programs which connect you to the world.